Hey, welcome back to another video. So it's been a minute or two since I last posted a video, but that's because of good reasons. I've had to travel recently within the States from Texas here to Atlanta. I'm working on my Nigerian passport. That's a whole long story. I have some clips of me doing that. But at the same time, in this video, I'm going to talk about inflation specifically and some of what I'm doing to get ready to relocate to another country. All right, so if you're new here, my name is Okeko. We are a family of 6. We are planning on relocating to Vietnam primarily, or Thailand. One of the two is really sort of our main target. And part of the reason why we want to relocate to another country is twofold, really. The first one is political environment that we happen to be on. This is not a political channel, but it is what it is. And at the same time too, from the political aspect of it, I don't see the United States getting better in the long term in the sense that our voices, whether you happen to be on the left or the right, to be really kind of be heard by the powers that be, because ultimately it's a corporate, America is corporate owns everything. And so whether you're on the left or the right, the agenda is set. So we're going to sidestep the political aspect of things and just basically say that it's hard to make meaningful progress for what is needed to help the average working person. So that's number one. And number two, probably the more poignant and most impactful reason as to why we want to relocate elsewhere is that there's a clear sense that the system is rigged. Not from the political aspect of it, more from the point of view that we were told all the things that we were supposed to do. You go to school, you work really hard to go to school, you get into college, you take on a massive loan. After that, you'll be rewarded with a good paying job. You work that job for a good amount of time. You may change jobs here or there, but ultimately that job will take care of you. It will provide for you and your family, and especially for myself, being a family of 6. Needing to provide for my family is crucial. And at the same time, if you play your cards right and you don't overconsume, because consuming is part of the package, right? So you live the American lifestyle, you have the house, 2.5 kids, you have a dog, picket fence, 2 cars, or if you're just a family of 1 or 2, maybe 1 car might be enough, but ultimately you have all the things that you're supposed to have. And then if you play your cards right and you invest in the stock market with 10% savings, you'll come at the end of your life having a good retirement where you can potentially retire. And as we are all finding out, especially for myself as a millennial, that has not played out how it's supposed to play out. I came into the workforce with the 2008 crash, right? And that was a huge setback, right? And then that quickly started to teach myself and my wife that, hey, we need to really prioritize our investments and savings, and really just know vacations happening. Healthcare, we might need to forego healthcare on purpose to try to save money. We'll need to pack lunches every single day, all the things, right? And ultimately we understood at every stage of the process, things that we're told we're supposed to do aren't working out. So I mentioned the 2008 crash, and then COVID happened, and because of ill management of the entire process, it just means things weren't really kind of done to prioritize. Let's ensure that the people who are keeping the economy alive remain in their jobs, and as a result, we lost jobs during that process, needing to reconfigure things at last minute, sold stocks and positions at the worst possible moments, all the things, very stressful. At the same time, because of COVID and all the things that happened, hyperinflation kicked in that much more. And at the same time, from 2008, right, thankfully we didn't have a house, so we didn't have a house to lose. But at the same time, it really made it so that people who had whatever they had to sell at a loss. And ultimately, that 2008 crash plus COVID crisis all compounded to increasingly worsening inflation at a faster and faster rate. Inflation is nothing more than the rate in which prices change, and the rate in which prices of changing have been that much more larger versus what they normally have to be. If you believe the Fed, they'll tell you that, hey, you know what? Inflation is currently increasing at 3 to 4%, when in reality, it's probably like 10%. And I definitely know that from 2006 to back to 2020, during COVID and all that stuff, inflation has now been topping 30%, baseline. But if you go into different sectors or different aspects of what is part of inflation, whether it's healthcare, that's closer to 70%. So long story short is to say that inflation is a key motivator for us wanting to relocate elsewhere. All right. So now this is going to come to be important at this point now, because if myself, my family, and I are moving out of the United States to go and live in Vietnam because of inflation principally, and I already mentioned part of it is also political, then that means then if we move out of the United States and go to Vietnam or Thailand, where inflation is generally slower, and it is, then after 10 to 15 years of living abroad, will you have a chance to then return back to the United States for whatever reason? So let's say we are living in Vietnam or Thailand for maybe 10 to 15 years. And in 10 to 15 years, maybe the political dynamics of Vietnam or Thailand goes to crap. Maybe there's a war that breaks up specifically in that region, and we need to we need to exit out of here. And for whatever situation is happening, maybe the United States becomes that one location somehow where we absolutely must return to. Then it's going to be a problem if we left the United States on purpose because of inflation and moved over there. Are we going to be able to replant our flag here in the United States to reestablish life? Because surely the inflation in the United States will have continued for all that amount of time that we left. So that's something that I worry about, and you should be thinking about as well. So how I'm managing that prospect of, hey, okay, we left the United States because of inflation. If we need to return for whatever situation, I need to have a plan for how to manage inflation while living in Vietnam for that off chance inevitability of needing to potentially step back foot in the United States. And so that's a daunting situation. And so the only thing I can think of to help manage that is how can if we had to return back to the United States, I'm immediately thinking we would need to have a house, a place to rent with a relatively low cost of living. We would need to have a vehicle and some other minor odds and ends. But I think from my perspective, my plan is to say, okay, what we're going to do to manage this inflation if we had to return back to the United States is to continue owning our house, right? We're going to move out of this house that we're currently residing and rent it out. That way it produces income while we're living abroad, and that income will scale with inflation moving forward while giving us income, right? And so if we had to return back to the United States, all we have to do is say, hey, whatever tenant is living here at the time, we're not going to renew your lease. Okay, we're going to now move back into it, and then we'll just continue per normal. And at the same time, the mortgage principal balance will have been paid down that much slower, and hopefully in 10 to 15 years, maybe we may be able to pay it off outright and so forth. So that's number one plan, to kind of keep pace with inflation and also manage that possible risk if we had to return back. We have somewhere to kind of settle back into without needing to pay exorbitant inflated prices of having to rent some property here in the United States, which I'm sure in 10 to 15 years is just going to be mind expanding, So that's what I'm thinking about. What's the other aspect of how I want to manage inflation is by continuing to invest in the stock market. And so what I envision is right now, we're kind of relying on two things for income I guess three things for income moving forward. The first one is to say we are planning on having a majority of, well, not majority, like half of our income will come from stock dividend portfolio. I've mentioned in the past on this channel, people can invest in, and this is not financial advice, I'm just saying, I'm some random dude on YouTube, I don't know what I'm talking about, other than to just say what has been working for myself and my family, is we invest in covered call ETFs, which is SPY, SPYI, QQQI, JEPQ, all these other stocks, right? And these pay a different amount of dividends per month, and we invest in them. So what we'll be doing as far as income is taking that dividend being paid per month, depending on how much you have invested, we'll be taking a portion of that to reinvest into itself. So let's say that one of those stocks or all of those stocks in total pay $1,000 per month in dividend income. We would take roughly $300 of that $1,000 and reinvest it into itself so that it continues to grow and compound over time. So that's one angle of our income that we plan to utilize to keep ourselves locked in with inflation so that inflation doesn't run away from us. So should we ever have that situation to return back to the United States, we have a means to kind of keep up with inflation, number one. Number two is hopefully this channel, thanks to you watching, thanks to you subscribing, thanks to you supporting us, will also help bring in income that we can take a portion of to reinvest into the stock market to further grow our portfolio position, keeping up with, again, inflation. And number three is to do some amount of work activity, give back to the world, vis-a-vis teaching some portion of English while in Vietnam. We're working on our TEFLs here in the States so that when we get over there, if we wanted to work as teachers, we can go ahead and do that, especially in different periods of time where we need additional income for whatever reason. And number three, if not by working for somebody else, preferably I would like to work for myself. Perhaps we can start some type of business out there in Vietnam. I already have some list of different business opportunities that I want to engage in Vietnam. One of which I can just kind of say off the bat, I was thinking of a gym, start a gym within Vietnam, but not necessarily, well, two types of things, okay. So it could either be a gym to, just a live gym within Vietnam, open one, have all the different gym equipments, but also sell smoothies and different sort of caterings to people who work out, different meal plans, all the things in Vietnam. Or maybe not necessarily a gym, do sort of more like a sort of a tailored made, fit for subscription Pilates studio where we can have professionals teach and give lessons on Pilates exercises, kind of tailored for individuals who are willing to kind of spend some more money, expats or what have you, as a way for additional income. And that should scale also with inflation moving forward. So, but the main takeaway from this video I want to kind of help people kind of think about is, yes, you're going to be leaving the United States for whatever reason that you want to leave the United States, and please have a good motivating, driving reason for why you want to leave. Certainly for me, it is political. I want to live in a society and in a culture, in a country that shares a lot of my orientation and sort of my community oriented approach towards living with people in kindness and in peace above all else, number one. And I'm finding that more and more difficult here in the United States, especially when you come to a grander realization that, hey, you can vote all you want, but ultimately these politicians ultimately answer to money powers, capital power that does not have your interest in mind. So that's number one. And number two, the cost of living here in the United States is just astronomical. We have done all the right things. We have invested, we have saved, and it just seems like inflation just keeps on like taking, a larger and larger leaps and bounds, racing above and past us to the point that's just like, it's very self-defeating. And so I want to, and then that's on top of us purposely living significantly below our means, not enjoying the fruits of the labors of having to like work longer hours, having to climb the corporate ladder and all these things. And it's just very frustrating. So I'm very much romanticizing the idea of relocating to another country that aligns politically with me and has that same spending power that I've worked so hard to try to achieve in a place that can give us all that package all in one. But then there's also that real risk that, hey, if you plan and romanticize these things without thinking about sort of the practical pieces of it, and you need to return back to the United States for whatever reason, also have a plan for sort of needing to basically reintegrate back to in the United States without having it completely destroy the remainder of your life in whatever respect. So let me know what you think of this video. Like, subscribe, and as always, thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.